Have you ever experienced a loss that completely changed how you saw yourself?
Oh, man.
Right? Like, really think about that for a second, because um, we usually associate the word heartbreak with just, a romantic breakup.
Yeah, that's the default assumption.
Exactly. But heartbreak is, I mean, it's just so much broader than that. It's losing a dream that you've poured years of your life into,
Absolutely.
or getting passed over for the career path you thought was your ultimate destiny.
Yeah.
It's this sudden, terrifying loss of a fundamental sense of purpose. And when that happens, the emotional pain doesn't just sting, it feels entirely overwhelming.
It
Like
does.
you're physically stuck in waist-deep mud and you can't move your legs.
It truly is a full body experience, you know? It's this paralysis that just seeps into your daily routines and it clouds your decision making.
Right.
It completely obscures your view of the future.
Yeah.
You aren't just sad, your entire operational system crashes.
Which is really the core of what we're unpacking today on this deep dive. We are exploring one central, profound question. Why do some people recover from heartbreak and emotional loss, while others, remain trapped by it for years, sometimes even decades?
Yeah, it's a huge question. And to find the answer, we're looking through a rather unconventional, but honestly brilliant lens today.
Mm-hmm.
We are pulling insights from a fantasy light novel and anime series called Mushoku Tensei.
And hey, if you aren't an anime fan, do not tune out.
Right, yeah, stick with us.
Because we aren't here to just give you like a play-by-play of a fantasy plot. That's not the mission here. We're focusing specifically on a period in the main character, Rudius's, life known as his quagmire phase.
Right.
So he's dealing with the crushing emotional fallout of a really sudden, unexplained separation from his closest companion, Eris.
And what makes this specific story arc so compelling for a psychological deep dive is that, well, it serves as a masterclass in mental management.
It really does.
It's an incredibly grounded look at resilience and organizational psychology during the absolute lowest points of a person's life. It basically strips away all the fantasy magic
Yeah.
to focus purely on human survival.
So let's start with the foundation of this pain, right? Because to figure out how to get out of the mud, we have to understand why it's so thick to begin with.
Yeah.
Why does heartbreak hurt to this paralyzing degree? I mean, I often wonder if the pain is rooted more in the reality of your current lonely situation, or if it's in the shattered expectations of the future you had already, mapped out in your head.
I mean, if we look at the psychology of deep loss,
Mm-hmm.
the devastation almost always stems from the shattered expectations.
Interesting.
Yeah, the gap between what you thought your life was going to be and what it actually is, that creates massive cognitive dissonance.
Wow. Okay.
So using Rudius as our case study here, his separation from Eris wasn't merely the physical absence of someone he cared deeply about. It was the complete, sudden loss of his identity. He had tethered his motivation, his future plans, his core self-worth, all of it, to that specific relationship.
That is so heavy.
Right. So when it vanished, he didn't just lose a person. He lost his reason to exist. The source material captures this perfectly by describing his state as an impotence of the spirit.
Impotence of the spirit.
Yeah, he literally cannot muster the will to engage with life.
That phrase just, it carries so much weight. It actually reminds me of the process of building a house.
Oh, I like that. Go on.
Like, emotional investment is a lot like spending years drafting blueprints, pouring a concrete foundation, picking out the furniture, either with someone else or just for a specific life goal, right?
Mhm.
Heartbreak isn't someone just coming along and changing the locks on the door. It's standing on the sidewalk, watching the entire house burn down to the foundation,
Yeah.
and realizing you have absolutely no idea where you're going to sleep tonight, let alone what your life looks like tomorrow.
That analogy hits the nail on the head.
Yeah.
You aren't just grieving the physical structure, you're grieving the decades of life you were supposed to live inside of it.
Exactly.
The phantom future is what haunts you.
And when the house burns down, the human instinct is often to just hide in the ashes.
Right.
We try to protect ourselves, which leads us to some incredibly dangerous, maladaptive responses to loss.
Oh, totally.
Hmm.
One of the most insidious responses, and the story highlights this brilliantly, by the way, is the trap of creating a fake persona.
The mask.
The mask, exactly. In this narrative, Rudius adopts a perfectly polite, completely unbothered facade.
Mm-hmm.
To get in the cultural nuance for just a second, in Japanese, the language allows you to choose your first-person pronoun.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah, so Rudius shifts from his natural, raw internal voice, which is or,
Okay.
to a highly polite, very distant pronoun, boku, He is actively projecting to the world, I am fine. I am functional. You don't need to worry about me.
And man, you see that everywhere in the real world.
Oh, yeah. Constantly.
Like, you go through a devastating breakup, or you get laid off from your dream job, and the very next day you walk into the grocery store or a family gathering with this tight, plastered smile.
Yeah.
You use your customer service voice with your own friends.
Yeah. And it functions as a defense mechanism, keeping people at arm's length so they can't, poke at your fresh wounds.
Right.
But here's the danger of the mask. Maintaining that level of pretense requires an immense amount of psychological energy.
Oh, it's exhausting.
It really is.
Yeah.
And more importantly, lying to yourself and hiding your true raw feelings, it gradually wears down your internal compass.
Wow.
If you constantly wear the polite mask, you eventually lose touch with your own true emotions. The person underneath the mask suffocates.
You essentially ghost your own soul.
That is a harsh but highly accurate way to put it.
Yeah.
And when you create that internal void, escapism and bitterness immediately rush in to fill it.
Naturally.
Right? Because when you're in this fragile, heavily masked state, your emotional skin is paper thin. Any perceived slight or rejection from the outside world feels completely catastrophic.
Yeah.
So the instinct is to either forcefully push back against the world with cynicism or spiral completely inward into intense self-blame and isolation.
So, okay, if pretending we are fine destroys us from the inside and hiding away from the world makes us bitter, what is the actual path forward?
Right, the million-dollar question.
Yeah. And this is where the narrative of Mushoku Tensei strips away the typical Hollywood recovery tropes and gets incredibly real.
It does, primarily by entirely rejecting the concept of an instant magical epiphany.
Yes.
There is no montage where the music swells, the character looks in the mirror, and suddenly they're fixed.
Thank goodness, because that's not real life. He actually earns the moniker quagmire during this phase.
Yeah.
And for anyone unfamiliar with the word, a quagmire is literally a soft, boggy area of land that just gives way under your feet. It is deep, thick mud.
Right.
He is metaphorically and literally dragging himself through the mud just to function.
And this introduces the profound principle of gradual, messy recovery. Rudius doesn't sit around in a dark room waiting for his motivation or confidence to miraculously return before he starts living again.
Right.
He accepts his total emotional collapse.
Right.
He acknowledges that his internal house is burned down. But then he makes the excruciating choice to start moving forward without wiping the mud off. He moves while broken.
I love that. Moving while broken. I actually want to talk about a cliche that always bothers me when people are grieving.
Let's hear it.
Time heals all wounds.
Oh, yeah.
People prescribe time like it's a course of antibiotics, like just swallow the pill, wait 6 months, and the heartbreak will magically clear up.
It is a deeply flawed platitude. Time alone doesn't heal wounds. Time alone just turns a wound into a permanent restrictive scar.
Wow, that's so true.
If you just sit in a room for a year, refusing to engage with life, you'll emerge a year older and exactly as miserable, if not more so.
Right.
Healing requires active effort in the face of complete meaninglessness. That active effort is what slowly bridges the gap back to a functional reality.
Okay, but I want to push back on that a bit, or at least play devil's advocate for a second.
Sure, go for it.
If you're listening to this and you're in the absolute thick of a terrible loss, the concept of active effort just sounds impossible.
It does.
When your spirit is completely depleted, sometimes the active effort of just getting out of bed feels like climbing a mountain. So how do you generate effort when the tank is completely empty?
That is the pivotal challenge.
Yeah.
And the answer the source material provides is the psychology of the routine.
Routine. Okay.
Yeah. When motivation is zero, routine becomes the literal shield for your heart.
Interesting.
When Rudius is absolutely devastated and functionally depressed, he doesn't rely on wanting to do things. He relies on a strict, unyielding routine that he executes mechanically. Muscle training, praying, and eating. He does this every single day, regardless of how hollow he feels.
The muscle training aspect is just fascinating.
Right.
The story explicitly states that he leans on working out because muscles never betray you. That is such a visceral, striking observation.
It is. And if we unpack the psychology behind that, it makes perfect sense for someone in trauma.
How so?
Well, when you're heartbroken, your trust in the world is shattered. Human relationships feel deeply unpredictable and unsafe. You can pour years of love into someone, and they might still walk away.
Yeah.
You can put endless unpaid overtime into a job and still get laid off.
So the input doesn't guarantee the output. The world just feels like a rigged casino.
Precisely. But lifting a weight, Doing a push-up. That is a closed, predictable environment where effort directly equals results.
Oh.
You put the physical strain in, your muscles adapt and grow. Engaging in simple, repetitive tasks or physical exercise gives a traumatized brain back a tiny, undeniable piece of control.
That makes a lot of sense.
It stabilizes the mind because it provides daily, physical proof that cause and effect still exist in your universe.
Okay, I see the value in that stabilization, but let me challenge the strategy again.
Bring it on.
Isn't mindlessly going through the motions of a strict routine just I don't know, a sophisticated form of running away from your feelings?
Hmm.
Like if you just put your head down and rigorously follow a daily spreadsheet, aren't you just distracting yourself so you don't have to process the grief?
It's a crucial distinction to make, but I would argue it is not avoidance. It is baseline survival.
Okay.
You have to remember the state we're talking about. When you are actively drowning, you cannot sit there and analyze why the boat sank.
Right, you just need a life vest.
You just need to hold onto a piece of driftwood. When your emotions are screaming at you to lie in the dark and give up entirely, becoming a slave to your routine prevents a total mental collapse.
Wow.
You aren't ignoring your feelings forever. You are simply refusing to let your current emotional state dictate your actions today. The routine keeps the engine running while the driver is incapacitated. You process the grief later, once the routine has pulled you to safer shores.
That reframing really changes everything. The routine builds the physical walls back up so the spirit has a safe place to eventually heal.
Exactly.
But eventually, you can't just lift weights and eat in your room forever.
No, you can.
You have to interact with the external world again. You need a purpose outside of your own survival.
Finding that purpose is daunting, but crucially, it almost always starts incredibly small. We tend to think of purpose as this grand cinematic destiny.
Right.
But for someone dragging themselves through the mud, purpose is just the unglamorous, gritty preparation for tomorrow.
Okay.
We see this when Rudius joins a mercenary group. Before a seemingly standard mission, he spends hours thoroughly researching a creature called a luster grizzly and meticulously studying the map of a lake. He does the tedious homework when no one is watching.
Okay, so for anyone not currently traversing a fantasy continent, what is the real-world equivalent of researching a luster grizzly?
In our world, the luster grizzly is the quarterly review. It's the intimidating client pitch. It's the difficult conversation you need to have with a landlord. The equivalent is doing the mundane prep work.
This taps perfectly into the 80% rule.
Right.
Like, in almost any stressful professional or personal scenario, 80% of your success is decided the day before.
Oh, absolutely.
Doing the dirty work of preparation vastly reduces the unexpected variables. And when you're emotionally fragile, the unexpected isn't just an annoyance, it is the trigger for a panic attack.
Yes, exactly.
Intense prep work creates a psychological container that keeps the panic at bay.
It gives you a script to follow when your brain goes blank from anxiety. And the source material highlights another brilliant psychological tactic Rudius uses during these high-stress moments.
Oh, what's that?
When he's facing grueling hardships in his current life, he actively compares them to his absolute lowest point in the past. A time before the fantasy world, when he was an isolated shut-in, absolutely incapable of facing society.
Oh, so he is essentially weaponizing his past trauma for his current benefit. I think that is incredibly powerful. You use your history of surviving your absolute worst days as undeniable empirical proof that you can survive today.
Exactly.
It's telling yourself, I survived the house burning down to the studs. I can survive a bad meeting. I can survive a flat tire.
You build resilience through historical evidence. But while routine and preparation fortify you internally, true recovery eventually requires the scariest step of all: letting other people back in.
Which feels entirely counterintuitive when other people are the reason you are heartbroken in the first place.
It really does.
Reconnecting is terrifying.
It is, but the narrative introduces a beautiful concept regarding how to do this safely. Co-suffering.
So suffering. Okay.
We have this misconception that friendships are built at parties or during easy, happy times. But true, unbreakable bonds are forged through shared adversity.
Right.
Overcoming deep trouble or solving a difficult, stressful problem alongside others is what bypasses the superficial small talk and builds profound connections.
What I find fascinating about this phase of the story, though, is that the people who help us heal aren't always, like, gentle or nurturing.
Not at all.
There is a character Rudius meets named Soldat. Soldat is a seasoned adventurer, and frankly, he is abrasive.
Oh, very.
He creates a terrible first impression. He's loud, harsh, and judgmental. My immediate instinct in real life would be to walk the other way and avoid someone like that at all costs.
And yet, Soldat ends up being the primary catalyst for Rudius's emotional breakthrough.
Right.
Because Soldat is abrasive, he sees right through Rudius's polite fake Boku mask. He violently calls Rudius out on his pretense, basically demanding that Rudius drop the polite act and show his true, messy, angry self.
It takes someone sharp to cut through the armor.
Exactly. The takeaway here is vital for anyone re-entering the world. Never judge someone's ultimate value to your life solely on a bad first impression.
That's a great point.
Especially when you are in a negative, defensive headspace. Your social radar is completely skewed. You have to learn to separate someone's rough exterior personality from their actual capability and their core values. The person who delivers the harsh, unvarnished truth you desperately need to hear might lack bedside manner, but they might be the exact person required to pull you out of the quagmire.
But, navigating these new social dynamics when you are still raw requires strategy.
Definitely.
The source material actually models some incredibly practical social survival tactics for someone joining a new group or returning to a workplace post-crisis.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about the number 2 position.
Okay.
Rudius joins a mercenary party, basically a team of contractors called Counter Arrow. But he doesn't try to be the hero or the leader.
No, he intentionally acts as the practical number 2, supports the leader. For professionals returning to work after a major loss or burnout, this is a brilliant strategy.
It really is.
You don't have to be the visionary leader to have a deep sense of purpose. Stepping into the number 2 role allows you to guide the group, execute practical work, and feel deeply valuable without carrying the overwhelming, exhausting pressure of being the figurehead who takes all the public blame if things go wrong.
It's stepping into the light, but keeping yourself out of the glaring spotlight while your eyes adjust.
That's a great way to visualize it. And while you are in that supportive role, you have to manage friction carefully. There's a concept we can call the dead zone.
Okay, again, the dead zone.
If you're trying to reintegrate socially and someone clearly puts up a wall or rejects you, do not face them.
Right.
Maintain a respectful, strictly business-like distance. When you're healing, you simply do not have the surplus emotional energy required to force people to like you.
And on the flip side of that, what happens when you finally start succeeding again? Because eventually the routine works, the prep works, and you start getting wins. There is another seasoned adventurer in this story, Timothy, who offers crucial advice regarding success. When you find it, share the wealth immediately.
Because sudden success breeds jealousy in the people around you. And jealousy is a direct threat to your newly established hard-won peace.
Absolutely.
By aggressively sharing the credit, passing along opportunities, and financially or socially rewarding your team, you neutralize that threat. You transform surrounding jealousy into a protective layer of support through pure generosity.
Okay, so if we pull all these threads together, the burning houses, the routines, the abrasive mentors, how do we translate this into a cohesive strategy?
Let's do it.
If you're listening to this right now and you're waking up tomorrow morning feeling completely stuck in the mud, how do you apply this philosophy to your day?
It comes down to a few core operational rules for surviving the quagmire. First, you must fundamentally change your relationship with your own schedule.
Okay.
When you are hurting, your emotions are unreliable narrators. Do not let them dictate your day. Let your routine be your absolute boss.
I love that.
If your brain is telling you to give up and crawl back into bed, tell yourself, I am allowed to give up, but only after I do the dishes, answer 3 emails, and take my morning walk.
You defer the collapse until the work is done.
Exactly.
I think a second crucial rule is protecting your core identity. We talked about the danger of the mask. You might absolutely need to wear a polite, unbothered mask to get through an 8-hour workday or a family dinner without breaking down.
Yeah.
That is just a reality of life, but you must intentionally carve out a safe space, whether it's a specific room, a journal, or one trusted friend, where you can completely drop that mask and be a mess.
Yes.
If you don't have a pressure valve for your true self, you will lose yourself entirely to the character you're playing.
Following that, as you interact with others, practice bulletproof humility. Even as you rebuild and start getting those small wins, defer the credit to the team or the people who supported you. It builds social capital and protects you from making unnecessary enemies at a time when your emotional defenses are still recovering.
And when friction does happen, because, it will avoid the crap of the off-target apology.
This is a big one.
When we're fragile, any conflict feels like a threat, and the instinct is to just blindly say, I'm sorry, to make the discomfort stop.
Right.
But if you apologize for the wrong thing without understanding why the other person is actually upset, you prove to them that you aren't really listening. It makes the conflict worse and deepens your own isolation. Take the extra minute to understand the actual problem before you try to smooth it over.
And finally, the most foundational step, find your muscle.
Find your muscle.
Find that one specific area in your life where input undeniably equals output. Maybe it literally is the gym and lifting weights.
Yeah,
But maybe it's coding a website or learning to knit or aggressively deep cleaning your kitchen.
I do that one.
Right. Find one closed environment that proves your actions still have direct, predictable consequences and lean heavily on that activity when the rest of the world feels chaotic and uncertain.
When we step back and look at the entirety of this journey, whether it's an anime protagonist fighting monsters, or you listening to this while commuting to a job you feel lost in, the grand illusion is that recovery means returning to normal.
Yeah.
But recovery is not about snapping back like a rubber band to who you were before the loss. That previous person and that old house are gone.
It's never about erasing the past or pretending the fire didn't happen. It's about integrating the ashes.
Beautifully said.
The mud you dragged yourself through, the strict routines you forced yourself to follow, the awkward, messy attempts at reconnecting with people. All of that becomes the reinforced concrete foundation of the new house you're building.
Heartbreak fundamentally changes us. It shatters the expectations we held so dearly. But it absolutely does not have to define the remainder of our story. Recovery truly begins the exact moment we stop looking backward, asking why this happened to us, and start looking forward, asking who we want to become because of it.
I think that is the perfect lens to view this through, and I want to leave you listening with one last slightly provocative thought to ponder today. Look very closely at the daily habits and routines you rely on right now. Be honest with yourself. Are they acting as your anchor, holding you steady in the chaotic storm so you could eventually sail again? Or have they slowly become a towering wall, keeping you safely hidden in the ashes, terrified to ever step back out into the world? It might be time to decide.